The next studio is DR00 Prototyping Spatial Negotiations by Paul and Clark.
Okay.
Paul.
Yeah.
Hi.
Can you hear, right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Let me just share my screen. Okay. It's showing all right on the screen.
Yeah.
Hello. Yeah. Okay. Hi everyone. I'm Paul. Unfortunately, Clark is not here today with us, but he'll be available for any questions if you want to send any emails. So yeah, so we are the studio that want to focus on the theme prototyping spatial negotiation. And just like a brief introduction of me and Clark. So I'm Paul. I graduated from Yale School of Architecture, and I'm currently working in Shanghai at Clue Architects. So just practicing. And Clark, Clark graduated from like a University of Edinburgh for masters, and now he's working at KPF in London. So both of us are also like practicing architects at the same time, and we do also have the passion to basically think out of the box to kind of like discuss issues with regards to the kind of urban or living conditions. So let me start. So first, cities are getting denser. It's actually a phenomenon that is particularly significant. So let's see, cities are getting denser. So the first picture, I'm sure everyone knows, this is New York. It's one of the really dense cities around the world. This is Manhattan Island, and this is Tokyo, and this is Hong Kong. But other than this, like developed countries, we actually know that in developing countries, especially, this phenomenon is actually rapidly increasing. So this is an aerial view of Mumbai. So by statistics, it's actually the most densely populated city in the world. And other cities like Karachi in Pakistan, and also Bogota in Colombia. So this phenomenon is not simply within Asia or single continents. It's actually a worldwide phenomenon. And the concentration of resources and abundance of opportunities are the key factors that continues to attract the rural population, especially the young people, to these cities. So are the cities really ready or equipped to welcome the rapid growing population? Or are the existing models of living adequate to respond to these changes? I mean, as most of you might have known, or if you are living in a large city, or even as students who live in big cities, most of the newcomers in the cities have limited choices to live either far away from the city center or in undesirably tiny living spaces. And in many situations, the living space is often sacrificed in exchange for other factors, sorry, such as shorter commuting time if you're working, if you know, and also the most important factor, which is cost. And out of practicality or even driven by goals, this new residents of the cities, they endure the negative experience of living and working in this harsh and cramped working environments. Many have also argued that this kind of like dense living conditions have also caused many issues such as social exclusivity, because people don't talk anymore. People are basically socially segregated. There's also a stratification of a social segregation based on your income and the affordability to live within the city. Other than that, there's also physical and even mental health problems that comes with this dense living. There are indeed many undesirable conditions to live in the dense living environment. However, is there really no solution? For us, we believe there are solutions out there, but we have to think out of the box and break out of our comfort zone in order to negotiate with these spatial limits. So together as a studio, prototyping spatial negotiation, we'll be discussing the current issues of urban living, challenging the norms, and proposing new dense living possibilities. just as food for thoughts, these are some of the examples of possible solutions that have been fantasized or speculated by people living in small clusters, or even adding a factor of time within the living condition, adding another dimension to the three-dimension volumes that we know. And now let me just quickly guide you through what our plan is for the course. Just change. How do I change this thing? Just change to another document. So we've also prepared a small studio brief, and this brief will be shared with everyone after the course, after this open day. So the course will be 8 weeks, as basically mentioned by Ben in the beginning. So for our course, this will be divided into 2 parts. So in the first 3 weeks of the course, we're actually focusing on weekly specific topics that focuses on the different scales of spatial negotiation. For us, I think because we believe that this topic might not be very familiar with everyone. So to us, it's necessary to kind of like take a step-by-step guidance, or like just basically breaking down the entire issues of living into several scales to discuss and to understand before we really proceed to develop the individual projects that everyone will be developing. And so the first 3 weeks will be focusing mainly on small exercises. And the second part will be the 5-week prototype design project, which will be developed individually based on the discussions and the research of the first part of the course. So in the course, the aims will really be to discuss the kind of like urban spatial morphology in the realm of architectural design, to design and prototype innovative solutions of spatial negotiation, and also definitely to explore the new possibilities of modern spatial negotiation in the 21st century urban environment. And for the course schedule, this is a rough guideline of what we'll be doing. Amendments will be made to kind of like refine the course based on the response. So for the first week, we're thinking we will be we'll be discussing as groups about the social realms and the context of the urban spatial organizations. We will look into histories as well as speculating future possibilities of what might be the boundaries of urban living. And from week 2 onwards, we'll be tackling a small design exercise, basically designing a 100-meter square space with 2 families. So basically, we'll be starting from a small scales where we think how this space is being negotiated between 2 families, 2 entities in the very local state. And then for week 3, we'll be increasing the scale, where we'll be designing a neighborhood prototype. So maybe a cluster of 10 families. And at this scale, we'll be thinking about, we'll be basically breaking beyond the negotiation of the local and be thinking of the negotiation of the cluster and even the negotiation of the public and private spaces. How can we redefine the relationship? How can we challenge the kind of like modern realms, the modern norms of living? And how can we find a solution that is both speculative, but based on the possible kind of like cultural context that we're familiar with. And yes, another thing that we are really, really interested in is because we understand that applicants are coming from various backgrounds, from different countries with different kind of social backgrounds, cultural backgrounds. So it is actually in our favor that everyone brings along their own experience and their own understanding of living into the discussion, and how together as a group, not only we kind of further extend our understanding further based on our own knowledge, but also to help everyone else to kind of like expand their boundaries of what are the possible types of livings, what are the types of social relationships that we are not aware of, but possible. And further on, from week 4 to week 8, we'll be developing individual projects. We'll be experimenting the different possibilities. We'll be prototyping basically the possibilities of future urban living. In this case, we'll be developing a community of 100 people, 100 families in a 1,000 square meter urban plot. And this is just basically limiting the physical area that we have to build. But all the other restrictions are basically up to discussions and adapted based on everyone's own narrative of this urban future. And then basically, apart from the normal classes, and also like crits, we also have this assessment and feedback mechanisms. So basically, every week we'll have kind of like a feedback discussion, a feedback form given back to all the students, where they'll be basically informed of like how they're performing based on the kind of like basically are you sorry, it's not really a way of saying like judging, but just to let you know whether you are basically falling behind, or are you basically at the pace that we set that allows you to produce something that is basically reasonable and also interesting at the end. Yeah. And that's basically the basic framework that we set up for this studio, as well as the key things that we want to discuss. Yeah. So any questions for the studio?
Hello?
Yeah, we've got a question from Rohit.
Yeah, hi.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The question is actually about the approach of the workshop. Is it gonna be like we'll be looking at you and the mentors and the mentees will be finding a solution together, or have you all shortlisted a few solutions through your experiences? I'm asking this question because I've tackled this similar problem, in fact, this exact problem in my thesis. And I came up with a set of solutions, and it was through a lot of readings and all of whatever that happened. But yeah, that's exactly my question. How would the approach be? Do you have any preconceived solutions, or will be finding solutions as we go ahead? And it could be anything. We might not even find a solution towards the end of it, but it could just be an exploration of what we could do with the urban realm. Is it about that?
Definitely. Like for us, it's not really about the kind of like end results, but really about the process. So for us, our approach is really to find a unique solution, or might not even a unique solution. Basically, guiding everyone through their own unique perspectives to basically tackling this urban problem. Because I mean, from what we know, and we know that everyone comes from different background, like different cultural backgrounds have different kind of like cultural limitations. You know, like everyone should be developing a different and unique solutions that it's basically suitable for their own narratives.
Context.
Yeah, context. And I mean, and for us, this context might not even be the present context. You know, like it could be like we actually encourage everyone to speculate maybe a new relationships that's possible in the future. Might in the future might like there might be a context where like land ownership is co-shared, or properties are all shared equally by everyone. You know, basically setting up your own like kind of urban framework and social framework. Basically re-establishing a new relationship. Yeah.
Or else it could also be like a multi-level living sort of a thing, where you imagine a city like a building. You take all of the services or infrastructure below ground, and maybe the livable spaces are on ground, so that we make it more open, make the cities less denser and more livable, maybe.
Yeah, definitely. Like this could be one approach that you have that you think it's interesting. So basically, I guess like just continue from what you asked. So this studio, like the intention of the studio is really not for the end results to be very practical or anything. it's actually basically what we want to. It's basically starting a discussion, basically establishing a framework of research and discussion for this kind of like future possible living. And like it is very possible that you could take the end results and further expand it in the future by yourself, or if possible, like this could be a research topic that can be basically continued afterwards. So it's really about like getting started, knowing what are the different considerations, what are the social factors, what are the economic factors, what are basically various agents that kind of like constitute this urban living. And then we find a way to manifest this relationship through a spatial design and a design of maybe an architecture or even just space. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Yep. Thanks.
Thank you for your question. Do we have other questions from the crowd? Paul, I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
So, so what your
Can
approach?
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah,
Sure.
you can go first, please.
What is like average daily schedule for this workshop?
Right now, the actual schedule has not been set yet because based on the students that we will have received, we'll basically have to coordinate the time because everyone comes from a different time zone. So based on that response, we'll basically make a more specific schedule that will basically cater to everyone. So basically, in general, the schedule will be like in the weekdays, we'll have tutorials, like individual quiz and tutorials that will be suitable for everyone's like time zone, based on everyone's time zone. And it will be just with like the students and the tutors. But on every weekend, we'll have group discussions, as well as just group presentations where like the entire studio will gather as a group to basically share their work and also to basically not quit each other, but just to kind of like give comments and to have basically interactive kind of like discussions. So on the weekends, we'll have to find a time that it's basically suitable for everyone. Yeah.
Yes,
and
so we can just, as I understood, we can take some tutorials during the week, and on the weekends we will have some discussions with the team. Okay, thank you so much.
Yep, thanks.
Great, thank you for your question. Yeah, back to what I want to ask you, Paul. So would you be sort of exploring like a utopia scenario and then working backwards and then look at how you can sort of transit the current state into the utopia?
Let's say the approach can be slightly different for each students because we do understand like each students have different concerns. But I think some of the students might want to like focus on a realistic issue and kind of like solve the problem, and also some students might want to kind of like go straight into a speculative future to establish a so-called utopia kind of like conditions that happens. And then from the utopian conditions, we can actually extract some of the points that might even be possible to be applied to the kind of like real world. Like we can't just take the utopian future as a whole and bring it to the real world, but then I think there might be points that can be extracted and established in the world. And also like just to share an interesting experience that I have, because I had a tutorial back in school as well. And so the tutor introduced me to this place called Auroville. I'm not sure if people know this place. So it's a city in India, but it's actually an amazing place where it's almost like a small utopian, where the kind of like social structure, the kind of like the economic structure is entirely different from the capitalist world. That's like land ownership is basically co-shared within that place. So it's almost like establishing already a basis for a so-called equality and utopian context. But then it's present in this world. It exists. Yeah. So basically, we could help everyone find their own kind of like interest and approach to this topic, and then basically ground their directions in terms of the design. Yeah. Yeah, but it's a great question.
Great, thank you, Paul.